Have you ever felt the ground beneath you shift suddenly, turning your world upside down? Picture a seemingly perfect family, where the bonds of love and trust begin to unravel with a dark affair. Tonight we delve into a story that explores the unsettling shadows of betrayal hidden within the walls of a home. A devoted husband, a trusting wife, and a stepdaughter, each caught in a web of deceit that spirals into an unimaginable nightmare. As the plot thickens, secrets simmer beneath a deceptive calm, leading us to a climax that is as shocking as it is tragic. Stay with us as we uncover how this family's lives were forever altered, revealing the chilling events that ended in a gruesome murder. You won't want to miss a single detail of this haunting tale. The story begins with Richard, a man known for his charisma and ambitious spirit. He seemed to have it all, a successful career and a loving family, with a marriage that appeared unbreakable to those on the outside. His wife, Susan, was the embodiment of grace and warmth, known in the community for her kindness and dedication to her family. Together, they shared a beautiful home, a place that echoed laughter and love. But the heart of the story lies with Lily, Susan's daughter from her first marriage. She was vibrant and full of dreams, bringing a youthful energy to their household. Richard had taken to the role of stepfather with ease, or so it seemed, creating an atmosphere that was both nurturing and supportive. Yet beneath this facade, their interactions were complex, layered with nuances that only the walls of their home could possibly reveal. As we peel back the layers of their lives, we see how each person's desires and insecurities played a part in the drama that would unfold. It was a delicate balance of love, trust, and ambition, each thread just a whisper away from unraveling. As we journey deeper into their lives, we begin to see how subtle shifts in these relationships set the stage for a tale of betrayal and unexpected consequences. The husband and the stepdaughter, it began innocently enough, or so it appeared. Richard and Lily's paths often crossed in the everyday rhythms of family life. At first, their exchanges were what you'd expect: a shared smile over a family dinner, a word of encouragement from a stepfather to his stepdaughter. Yet as time went on, these encounters grew more frequent, more intense, as if an unspoken understanding was forming between them. Lily was captivated by Richard's charm and the attention he lavished upon her, attention that made her feel seen and special in a way that was new and thrilling. For Richard, Lily's admiration appealed to his ego, filling a void he had perhaps never acknowledged. As months passed, their relationship slowly shifted from the ordinary to the extraordinary, a clandestine dance that neither openly acknowledged but both felt. A stolen glance here, a lingering conversation there, these small moments built a bridge between them, inch by illicit inch. The tension reached a crescendo one evening when a seemingly innocent conversation in the dim glow of the porch light turned into an emotional confession. Richard found himself sharing thoughts and dreams he hadn't dared voice to anyone else, and Lily listened, her eyes wide with understanding and something more. It was as if a line had been crossed, though neither dared to speak it. They became ensnared in a dangerous web, each secret meeting a step closer towards the edge of an abyss. But with each step towards their forbidden connection, the consequences loomed ever larger, shadows darkening the path ahead. It was a fragile dance on the precipice of disaster, where one misstep could, and ultimately would, unravel everything. The signs were there, echoing like a distant drumbeat in the night, signaling the storm brewing on the horizon, a storm that would tear apart the very foundation of their family. The discovery of the affair began like a whisper, soft, faint, almost too quiet to be believed. Susan had noticed subtle changes in her home, changes that murmured of something amiss. It was in the small things, really. A shared glance between Richard and Lily that lingered a beat too long, hushed conversations that faded to silence when she entered the room. Susan, ever trusting and devoted, dismissed these signs at first, attributing them to the complexities of their blended family. But intuition, that quiet voice often ignored, refused to let go. One evening, as the golden dusk settled over their neighborhood, Susan stumbled upon something that would shatter her world. She found a note tucked away in the corner of Richard's study, a note that spoke of longing and regret, written in the delicate script she recognized as Lily's. The words on the page confirmed her deepest fears, and for Susan, time seemed to stand still. Her heart raced, each beat echoing the pain of betrayal that now infused her very being. The reality of Richard's affair with her daughter was a weight she had never imagined bearing. It was as if the life she had built, brick by brick, was crumbling around her. Susan's confrontation with Richard was quiet, yet the words she spoke carried the weight of 1,000 storms. Her eyes, a mix of anger and profound sadness, searched his face for a trace of remorse, an explanation that never came. Richard, faced with the undeniable truth, could not conceal his guilt. The facade that had held their family together cracked, letting the raw truth spill between them. Lily, upon hearing of the confrontation, was overcome by a torrent of emotions, shame and guilt intertwined with a desperate need to explain, to justify the choices that had led to this fragile moment. But in the end, there were no words that could mend the broken pieces of trust. The revelation of the affair rippled through their home, transforming it from a place of warmth to a battlefield of raw emotions. Each family member was marked by the betrayal, their lives forever altered by the uncovering of this hidden truth. The aftermath was a silence that hung heavy, a silence that spoke of love lost and innocence shattered. It was a silence that heralded the beginning of the end, a shadow that loomed over them, bringing with it an inevitable, grisly conclusion. The immediate fallout from the discovery of the affair was a palpable tension that gripped the household like a vice. It was as though the very air had turned heavy, every shared space now echoing with the unspoken words and unresolved emotions that lingered like a specter. Richard, once confident and commanding, now moved through the home like a shadow of his former self, his presence a constant reminder of the betrayal that had severed their bonds. Susan, engulfed in a sea of turmoil, found herself torn between her roles as wife and mother, the dual loyalty tearing at the seams of her heart. Her conversations with Richard became brief and clipped, each exchange loaded with the weight of their fractured trust. Lily, once vibrant and carefree, retreated into herself, haunted by the consequences of her choices. She avoided lingering in the same room as her mother, the guilt resting heavily on her young shoulders. The atmosphere of their home, once filled with laughter and light, grew cold and uninviting. Every corner seemed to hold a memory of what had been lost, each room now a silent witness to the unraveling of their family. Meals were now eaten in silence, the clinking of cutlery the only sound breaking the oppressive quiet. At night, the house echoed with the distant sounds of sobbing and whispered arguments, reminders of the deep fissures that had formed. A tension enveloped each family member, pulling them apart while paradoxically tethering them to this shared pain. Beneath this strained calm, A storm brewed, anger and hurt festering just beneath the surface, threatening to erupt at any moment. In the midst of this turmoil, the question remained, could they find a way to forgive and rebuild, or was the damage irreparable, a prelude to something far more ominous? The road ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, each step fraught with the potential for further heartache and devastation. They were caught in a delicate balance, each word and action holding the power to tip the scales toward either reconciliation or ruin. The tension was suffocating, a constant reminder that the darkest moments were yet to come. The psychological analysis of Richard and Lily reveals a complex web of motivations and vulnerabilities that drove their ultimately destructive actions. Richard presents a facade of confidence and success, yet beneath lies a deeply ingrained insecurity, a yearning for validation that he attempts to satiate through external admiration. The affair with Lily provided an intoxicating sense of empowerment, fulfilling a need for significance that his public persona could not sustain. This craving stemmed from a fear of inadequacy, a fear that lurked in the shadows of his accomplished exterior, whispering doubts that only intensified in the presence of Lily's youthful admiration. She, in turn, was navigating the tumultuous waters of adolescence, a time where identity and belonging are paramount. Lily's life had been colored by the complexities of a blended family, and her relationship with Richard became a canvas on which she sought to paint her own sense of relevance and worth. In Richard, she found not just a father figure, but an ally who seemed to understand and appreciate her in ways that perhaps she felt her mother could not. Her vulnerability, combined with a desire to be seen and valued, made her susceptible to Richard's attention, mistaking it for genuine affection. It was a dangerous interplay of need and affirmation, where each reinforced the other's insecurities. Motivated by their own personal voids, both Richard and Lily were drawn into an emotional spiral that blurred the boundaries of right and wrong. Richard's actions were propelled by a midlife crisis of sorts, an existential questioning of his life choices and the roles he played within his family. His relationship with Lily provided a semblance of escape from the stagnation he perceived in his marriage, a misguided attempt to reclaim a sense of vitality and purpose. For Lily, the affair symbolized a rebellion against the constraints of her reality, a misguided attempt at autonomy that unfortunately intertwined with Richard's own unmet needs. Their vulnerabilities, left unchecked, became the catalysts for an affair that was never about love, but rather about filling the emptiness within themselves. The tragic outcome was a result of their inability to confront these psychological gaps, leading to choices that would ultimately unravel their lives. This psychological portrait paints a haunting picture of how unmet needs and unaddressed fears can drive individuals toward decisions that not only harm themselves but irrevocably damage those they love. As we delve deeper into their psyche, we understand the tragic nature of their motivations and how these vulnerabilities set the stage for the grisly events that unfolded, leaving us to question how different choices could have altered the course of their fate. The immediate community reaction was a mixture of disbelief, shock, and a hint of morbid curiosity. The facade of the perfect family that Richard and Susan had built was a cherished staple in the neighborhood, making the news of the affair and subsequent tragedy a source of endless gossip and speculation. Neighbors who had once envied their apparent bliss now whispered about the darkness that lurked behind those closed doors, It was as though everyone was trying to piece together the puzzle of how such an idyllic life could unravel so dramatically. Many turned to each other, exchanging hushed conversations on sidewalks and in local coffee shops, each trying to comprehend the enormity of what had transpired. One neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, who used to see Susan at the local book club, expressed her disbelief, saying, "I never would have imagined it. Susan and Richard seemed so in love. It's like something out of a bad dream." Another, Mr. Callahan, who often shared his weekend mornings gardening beside Richard, remarked, "You think you know someone, but it's what you can't see that's most dangerous. I'm just sorry it all ended this way." The local news station caught the Smith brothers, teenagers who lived down the street, sharing their own view, reflecting the sentiments of a community still grappling with the shocking events. "It's weird," one of them noted. "We played basketball with Lily all the time. You just think stuff like this happens on TV, not right down the street." Their words hung heavy in the air, encapsulating the surreal atmosphere that now enveloped the neighborhood. The community reeled, caught between compassion for the family and an unshakable fascination with the scandal. This affair had transformed a once vibrant street into a stage for a drama that no one had foreseen, leaving everyone to ponder the thin veneer of normalcy and the secrets that might dwell just beneath the surface. As the story echoed beyond the confines of their small town, many found themselves reflecting on the fragility of relationships and the unanticipated paths life might take. The turning point came on a night shrouded in a heavy silence, an eerie calm that blanketed the house like the ominous stillness before a storm. The air was thick with unresolved tension, each family member retreating into their own world as if bracing for the inevitable confrontation. It was a night like any other, yet beneath the surface, emotions churned with an intensity that threatened to ignite at any moment. The evening began with Richard and Susan seated across from each other at the dinner table, their words sparse, their eyes avoiding the ghosts that lingered between them. Lily, her usual exuberance replaced by a quiet reserve, picked at her food, the clatter of her fork against the plate echoing in the oppressive quiet. Susan, still reeling from the betrayal, grappled with a decision that weighed heavily on her heart. She glanced at Richard, a mix of anger and despair etched onto her face, knowing that this was the night she had to confront the truth head-on, to demand answers that were long overdue. The conversation that followed was inevitable, a clash of pent-up emotions that had been simmering beneath the facade of normalcy. Susan finally broke the silence, her voice steady yet tinged with pain, asking Richard the question that had haunted her every moment since the affair came to light. Why, Richard, cornered by the truth he could no longer deny, stumbled through explanations that rang hollow even to his own ears, revealing a man torn between regret and a desperate need for understanding. The argument escalated quickly, years of unspoken grievances rising to the surface with a ferocity that neither had anticipated. Words became weapons, each syllable cutting deeper than the last, as the foundation of their relationship crumbled around them. Lily, feeling the burden of her own guilt and the overwhelming weight of her actions, attempted to interject, her voice trembling as she tried to explain, to somehow make sense of the chaos she had helped create. But in the whirlwind of emotions, her words were lost, her presence only adding fuel to the already blazing fire. The breaking point came swiftly, a culmination of misunderstanding and miscommunication spiraling out of control. Richard, driven by a cocktail of anger, and desperation, found himself reaching a level of emotional turmoil he had never anticipated, crossing a line in a momentary loss of control. It was a single, impulsive action, born not of premeditation, but of a mind clouded by the maelstrom of betrayal and fear. The fallout was immediate and devastating, a silent scream that ripped through the night, echoing through the walls of what was once a home. In that singular, tragic moment, the tensions that had defined their lives reached their catastrophic zenith, the fragile threads tethering them to normalcy, snapping with an irrevocable finality. It was a moment that marked a point of no return, forever altering the trajectory of their lives, leaving behind a scene of chaos and despair that spoke to the destructive power of unchecked emotions. As dawn approached, casting pale light over the remnants of their shattered world, the reality of the situation settled in, a grim testament to the irreversible consequences of their actions. The turning point was not just a culmination of personal failings, but a harsh reminder of the fragile balance between love and ruin, a grim tale of how quickly the shadows in one's heart can turn deadly when left unresolved. Murder uncovered, the grisly discovery began as the first rays of dawn crept into the shattered remnants of what was once a serene home. The air was heavy with an unnatural silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city awakening to a new day, oblivious to the horror that had unfolded within these walls. It was a neighbor, curious about the unusual quiet, who first sensed something was amiss. As she approached the house, a foreboding chill ran down her spine, her intuition whispering of the darkness that lay within. Her knock on the door met no response, prompting her to peer through a partially open window. What she saw sent her into a whirlwind of panic, a scene of chaos and despair, a tableau of tragedy that was both shocking and incomprehensible. The room was in disarray, furniture overturned as if caught in a violent storm, and at its center, a sight that would forever haunt the memory of those who saw it. In the dim light, Richard lay motionless, his once vibrant presence now reduced to lifelessness, a victim of the unchecked emotions that had consumed him. The initial shock of the discovery quickly spread, rippling through the neighborhood like a chilling gust of wind. Law enforcement arrived promptly, sirens breaking the eerie silence as officers and investigators descended upon the scene with somber efficiency. The flashing lights of their vehicles cast an unsettling glow, illuminating the stunned faces of onlookers who had gathered, drawn by a morbid curiosity and the grim reality of the event. Inside, detectives moved with practiced precision, their expressions a careful mask of professionalism, masking the horror of the tableau before them. Each step they took was measured, as they meticulously documented every detail, every clue that could unravel the mystery of this grisly crime. For the officers, it was evident that this was no ordinary case. The emotions that lingered in the air, the palpable sense of a family torn asunder, added layers of complexity to their investigation. As they combed through the evidence, the pieces of a tragic puzzle slowly began to emerge, revealing the depth of the turmoil that had preceded this terrible act. The shock of the crime reverberated beyond the walls of that home, its ripples touching the hearts of an entire community. Questions filled the air. How had it come to this? What darkness had possessed a man known for his charm and ambition to commit such a heinous act? As investigators pieced together the story, the chilling reality of how deeply buried secrets and unchecked passions could culminate in such a devastating outcome became starkly apparent. This scene, a chilling testament to the destructive power of betrayal and unfulfilled desires, would linger in the minds of those involved long after the investigation concluded, a haunting reminder of the frailty of the human spirit when pushed to its limits. As the day wore on, the house slowly emptied, leaving behind the ghostly echoes of a life forever altered by tragedy, a somber testimony to the grisly consequences of an affair that had spun violently out of control. The forensic evidence began to unfold as investigators meticulously scoured the crime scene, their focus sharp and unwavering. Each detail was scrutinized, every clue carefully catalogued, in the hopes of piecing together the grim events that had occurred. The once warm and welcoming home now felt like a labyrinth of secrets, each corner potentially revealing a new facet of the family's tragic unraveling. Forensic experts, donned in white suits, moved with a practiced precision born of experience, their task to sift through the chaos and uncover the truth hidden beneath its surface. The process was both painstaking and methodical, with every room in the house becoming a potential goldmine of information. They began by collecting samples from the scene, fingerprints, hair fibers, and blood spatters, all of which held the potential to tell a story that human memory could not. Each piece of evidence was logged meticulously, a crucial puzzle piece in a case that had shocked not just the community, but the detectives themselves. Experts in forensic psychology were brought in to analyze the psychological profiles of each family member, seeking to understand the motivations driving the unthinkable actions. There was a dark narrative etched in the remnants of the night, whispers held within the silence that only trained eyes and ears could detect. As the forensics team continued their work, revelations began to surface. The analysis of physical evidence, DNA samples, the trajectory of bloodstains, and the examination of personal belongings started to form a coherent picture of the night's events. Each finding was a thread being woven into the fabric of a chilling narrative, one that spoke of desperation, betrayal, and ultimately, a loss of control. Dr. Cassidy, a seasoned forensic expert known for her unwavering attention to detail, provided key insights into the evidence. She noted that the blood pattern analysis suggested a sudden burst of violence, indicating an emotionally charged and possibly unplanned action. "What we're seeing here," she explained, "is a scene that speaks to an intimate tragedy, a crime of passion, driven by raw, unchecked emotions." Her commentary added depth to the investigation, lending her expertise to the growing understanding of the psychological turmoil that had consumed the household. As fingerprints were compared and cross-referenced, a timeline began to emerge, offering a glimpse into the moments leading up to the murder. Suspicions were confirmed, alliances uncovered, and the narrative of betrayal that had simmered beneath the surface came into sharper focus. Each piece of evidence was a testament to the complexity of human relationships, highlighting how quickly love could sour into something far more sinister. While the physical evidence provided a foundation, it was the expert analysis and interpretation that truly brought the case to life, revealing the darker truths that lay beneath the veneer of normalcy. This forensic deep dive was not just about solving a crime, but also about understanding the fragile line between affection and obsession, a reminder of how quickly the scales could tip towards unimaginable consequences. As the investigation proceeded, the story pieced together by the forensic team served both as a stark warning and a poignant reflection on the human condition, with each discovery shedding light on the tangled web of emotions that had led to such a tragic end. The legal proceedings began with a media frenzy, as the courtroom became a focal point for both the community and the nation, gripped by the salacious details of the case. The prosecution, led by the determined and seasoned attorney Jonathan Peters, crafted their argument around the undeniable evidence of betrayal and ultimate violence. Their strategy was rooted in painting Richard as a man driven by selfish desires, whose actions were premeditated and fueled by a twisted sense of entitlement. Peters emphasized the psychological profile drawn from forensic analysis, presenting Richard as someone who had allowed his darker impulses to overshadow any semblance of morality. The prosecution highlighted the meticulous collection of forensic evidence, underscoring the timeline of events that suggested a calculated escalation of emotions leading to murder. They portrayed Richard's actions as a deliberate betrayal of trust, not only towards Susan, but towards the sanctity of family, resonating deeply with the jury's sense of justice. The defense, spearheaded by the astute and tactical lawyer Rebecca Carter, faced the arduous task of salvaging Richard's reputation and attempting to explain the seemingly unexplainable. Carter's approach centered on humanizing Richard, presenting him as a flawed but redeemable individual caught in a moment of emotional turmoil rather than a cold-blooded killer. She underscored the complexity of human emotions and the intricate dynamics of family relationships, arguing that the crime was a tragic consequence of an emotional breaking point rather than premeditated malice. Carter pushed for the interpretation of the forensic evidence as indicative of a spontaneous act of passion, an unforeseen eruption in the face of overwhelming personal pressure. A critical part of her defense was rooted in Richard's background, painting him as a man who was overwhelmed by the responsibilities and expectations placed upon him, ultimately leading to a momentary lapse in judgment. The courtroom saw a parade of witnesses, from forensic experts to family acquaintances, each providing testimony that wove a tapestry of conflicting perspectives, creating a complex narrative for the jury to unravel. As the trial unfolded, it became a reflection on the intricate web of human relationships and the often volatile nature of suppressed emotions. The arguments from both sides presented a gripping insight into the depths of human psychology, where love, desperation, and betrayal collided in an explosive finale. The jury was left to ponder whether Richard's actions were those of an inherently dangerous individual or the irrevocable consequences of succumbing to unaddressed personal demons. As closing arguments were made, the atmosphere in the courtroom was thick with anticipation, the fate of Richard hanging precariously in the balance. The trial had not just been a pursuit of justice, but a raw examination of how the darkest corners of the human mind could overshadow years of love and loyalty. The verdict that would follow was not just a decision on Richard's fate, but a poignant reminder of the complexity of human nature, leaving all those involved to reflect on the fine line between love and destruction. The trial highlights began with a palpable tension, each day bringing new revelations that kept the courtroom on edge. One of the first gripping moments came from Susan, who took the stand with a quiet strength that belied the turmoil within. Her testimony was emotionally charged, recounting the early days of her life with Richard, painting a picture of love turned sour under the weight of betrayal. Her words resonated deeply, offering the jury a first-hand glimpse into the emotional wreckage left by the affair. As she spoke, the courtroom fell silent, her pain evident in every word. Her account of finding the note from Lily, the shock of realization, and the subsequent confrontation brought tears to more than a few eyes, serving as a stark reminder of the human cost of Richard's actions. Next was the testimony of Lily herself, a moment many had awaited with bated breath. As she took the stand, there was an air of vulnerability about her, a young woman caught in a maelstrom she couldn't fully comprehend. Her voice wavered as she described her relationship with Richard, a blend of admiration and confusion, and the pull of emotions that had swept her along a path she never intended to walk. The jury watched intently, absorbing her story of youthful naivety entangled in adult complexities. Her testimony, a pivotal moment that added layers to the understanding of what had transpired. The prosecution called upon Dr. Cassidy, the forensic expert whose detailed analysis lent a scientific rigor to their narrative. Her breakdown of the evidence was methodical, yet delivered with an intensity that kept the jury's attention rapt. She explained the blood pattern analysis with precision, illustrating how the chaos of the scene aligned with an emotional outburst rather than a premeditated act. Her expertise painted a picture of the psychological storm that had led to the crime, reinforcing the prosecution's stance that Richard's actions were driven by a deeply flawed psyche. A surprising turn came with the testimony of Mark, Richard's longtime friend and confidant. His words were perhaps the most unexpected, casting Richard in a light few had considered. Mark shared insights into Richard's struggles with self-worth and the immense pressure he felt to maintain the facade of a perfect life. His account of their conversations presented Richard as a man in internal turmoil, wrestling with demons that ultimately overwhelmed him. Mark's heartfelt testimony was like a crack in the prosecution's armor, humanizing Richard in a way that gave the jury pause. The trial's crescendo built with the defense's closing strategy, anchored by Rebecca Carter's impassioned plea. She highlighted the complexity of Richard's character, urging the jury to see beyond the surface of his actions to the person trapped within. Her argument was a call for empathy, a reminder of the intricacies of human emotion and the capacity for error under extreme stress. As the trial reached its conclusion, the jury was left with a multifaceted portrait of a family shattered by choices and an affair that spiraled into tragedy. Each testimony had sculpted the narrative, weaving a tale of human vulnerability and the devastating impact of unchecked emotions. The highlights of this courtroom drama were not just in the words spoken, but in the raw emotions laid bare, challenging everyone present to reflect on the boundaries of forgiveness and the depths of human complexity. The aftermath of these tragic events left an indelible mark, not only on the surviving family members, but on the community that once held their family in high regard. Susan, now faced with the daunting reality of rebuilding her life from the ashes, found solace in therapy and the quiet support of close friends who rallied around her. The weight of the betrayal lingered, a phantom presence that crept into quiet moments and cast shadows on her path forward. Yet, through resilience and the passage of time, she began to forge a new narrative, one where pain slowly gave way to acceptance, allowing glimpses of hope to peek through the cracks of a fractured heart. For Lily, the journey toward healing was fraught with introspection and deep emotional scars. Haunted by the role she played in the unraveling of her family, she sought guidance and understanding through counseling, piecing together the fragments of her identity and striving to find peace. It was a path laden with guilt and self-discovery, as she grappled with the consequences of her youthful decisions and the desire to carve out a future unmarred by the past. The community, once vibrant and close-knit, reeled from the seismic shock of the tragedy. Neighbors who once exchanged pleasantries on sunlit porches now carried the burden of a grim reminder of how fragile life's veneer can be. The scandal lingered like a whisper through the town, shaping conversations and altering the landscape of friendships and trust. It was a collective consciousness, a shared understanding that the thin line between appearance and reality could shatter in an instant, leaving behind a wake of questions and reflections. As the dust settled, broader implications bubbled to the surface, prompting reflections on the nature of human relationships and the uncharted depths of the human psyche. The event served as a catalyst for discussions on the importance of addressing emotional needs and recognizing the signs of a crisis before they spiral beyond control. It was a stark reminder of the complexity of family dynamics and the critical need for open communication and emotional support systems. This tale, though rooted in personal tragedy, resonated far beyond the boundaries of the immediate circle, offering poignant lessons about vulnerability, the consequences of unchecked emotions, and the enduring strength of the human spirit when faced with adversity. The echoes of this dark chapter continue to inspire reflections, highlighting the capacity for growth and redemption, even in the shadow of unimaginable heartbreak, and reminding all who heard it of the quiet resilience that often follows life's most challenging trials. Interviews with experts add a crucial layer of understanding to this case, delving deep into the minds of those involved while shedding light on the broader implications of such tragedies. We begin with insights from Dr. Emily Lawson, a renowned psychologist who specializes in family dynamics and the psychology of betrayal. Dr. Lawson explains that affairs like the one between Richard and Lily often stem from unmet emotional needs and unresolved personal insecurities. She elaborates, in blended families, there can be unique challenges related to identity and belonging, which may exacerbate underlying vulnerabilities. Richard and Lily's relationship may have offered both a sense of validation and acceptance absent elsewhere in their lives. Dr. Lawson emphasizes the importance of open communication within families, stressing that recognition of emotional red flags could prevent escalation into destructive behaviors. We also hear from Dr. Thomas Reynolds, a criminologist who explores the factors leading to crimes of passion. According to Dr. Reynolds, cases involving familial betrayal often involve a complex interplay of psychological stressors. He notes emotional turmoil, especially when intertwined with guilt and secrecy, can create a volatile situation where rational decision-making is overshadowed by instinctual reactions. In Richard's case, his psychological profile suggests a struggle for control, possibly leading to the snap that resulted in his violent actions. This analysis underlines the potential for unchecked emotions to spiral into criminal acts, highlighting the necessity for early intervention. From a legal perspective, we turn to attorney Lisa Grant, who provides insight into how such cases are approached in the courtroom. Attorney Grant explains that while the legal system seeks justice for the victims, it also considers the psychological factors influencing the accused's actions. Understanding the defendant's mental state is crucial, she says, as it informs whether the actions were premeditated or the result of an emotional outburst, impacting sentencing decisions. This commentary underscores the delicate balance between justice and psychological consideration in cases of passion-fueled crimes. Through these expert perspectives, we gain a multi-faceted understanding of the tragedy that befell Richard's family, revealing the profound psychological currents beneath the surface and the importance of addressing these currents before they lead to irreversible consequences. In summary, the tragic narrative we've explored today serves as a poignant cautionary tale, one that invites us to reflect on the complex interplay of morality and human nature. At its core, this story underscores how unchecked desires and hidden vulnerabilities can spiral into devastating consequences, leaving a trail of shattered lives and irreparable loss. As we navigate the intricacies of family dynamics and personal relationships, we find that the boundaries between right and wrong are often blurred by our deepest fears and insecurities. This tale, while deeply unsettling, offers a mirror into our own lives, prompting us to question the resilience of our moral compass in the face of temptation and betrayal. We are left to ponder haunting questions. What drives us to cross lines we never thought we would? How far can desperation push us into the shadows of our own psyche? And ultimately, are we all capable of redemption amid the wreckage of our worst choices? As you contemplate these questions, let this story be a reminder of the power of introspection and the importance of addressing the emotional voids that might otherwise lead us down a path of no return. We thank you for joining us on this journey through the labyrinth of human complexity and invite you to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell for more thought-provoking mysteries that delve deep into the human condition. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and until next time, remember to keep a light in the dark corners of your mind.